Well, and then there was DX. I mean, you made a lot of contributions to this. I mean, Harvey came in as one of the leads. I had foolishly two lead designers. Never do that, by the way. Ultimately, had to make a decision, and Harvey became the lead designer, and really functioned more as a co-director than a lead designer. I thought
Deus Ex, again, one of the best learning experiences ever. But when I look back on it, I think there's so many people at so many levels that contributed to it. And the team even seems small by today's standards, weirdly. But when I think about my interaction with you and Chris Norden, it seems like the soul of the game, like maybe not the soul of the game, but the place where it really happened, like decisions got made, features got cut. Ego. Yeah, like me and Warren and Chris would sit in a room and fight like cats and dogs. And then at a lower level, I also worked with the design team. So like I'd be in a room with all the guys putting the chairs and the bottle of water on the table. We were set decorating for the whole environment, And that experience was fantastic, too. That was like only the second time I had been a level designer. And I really enjoyed that. That was still, to this day, one of the most enjoyable parts of my... Because I at the time, my then wife was a teacher, and she went to work. We had to get up. I had to get there at 7. Which most people didn't roll in at a video game company until like 10, right? And so I would get there at 7, and I would work for 3 hours before anyone else walked in the building. And so what I would do later in the game is I would have arguments or design systems or work on fiction or whatever with other guys. But for 3 hours in the morning, all I would do is build levels and move things around in the levels and script AIs to do certain things. And it was a very powerful experience.
Like I said, you made huge contributions to this game. I mean, and I think you don't get enough credit for it, but there were two that stood out for me that I look back on them and I go, oh my God, thank God, Harvey was there to just point these two things out. So I wanted to get your take, because we've never actually talked about this, I don't think, but and they're not even necessarily the most important things in the game, but you redesigned the skill system. I mean, I had a skill system that I thought was really going to be cool. And you redesigned it. Do you even remember that?
Was I think one of the things we were both sort of absorbing at the time from the people around us, like, was the notion of lesser granularity, so that, like, if a change happens in the game, you notice it. Yeah. And even though we tricked ourselves into thinking that we had that figured out at the time, I'm still learning that. If it's not demonstrable to the player, don't do it, that kind of thing. But at the time, we boiled it down to like 4 tiers for every skill.
Well, you did. Right? When you came on the project, the skill system was binary. It was on-off. It was you had the skill, you could do something. You didn't have the skill, you couldn't. And I thought that was simple and streamlined. And see, he doesn't even remember this. This is awesome. One of the most critical decisions in the game.
Right.
And you came up with a completely different system that was more granular than that, and that made it work. Okay, so we're not going to talk about this because you don't even remember it. Great.
Yeah. That's the funny thing about video games is, like, and it must be true for everything, is like if you actually were in the room when something was happening, like the version that gets reported later or whatever is so radically different.
It's all Rashomon. If you haven't seen the movie Rashomon, just go see it.
Yeah, totally different perspectives and so much granular. It's also signal loss. Like, you say something to the effect of, in 1965, Richard Nixon met with so-and-so and they discussed blah. And that's like a sentence, right? And if you think about it, like, the last time you met with somebody and discussed something, think about all the different emotional things that were going on, what had fed into your day, the little struggles that were going on, how many times you changed your mind. It's all lost. All that's gone. The next day it's gone, probably from you maybe even. And certainly if anybody ever reports on what you did, it's some sort of retardedly simple version of what actually happened.
Well, speaking of retarded, anyway, not simple necessarily, the other big thing on Deus Ex was I had this incredibly grandiose story with missions that were just huge, and the Russo-Mexican alliance attacking Austin. I mean, what the heck was I thinking? And I remember you and Steve Powers grabbed me and dragged me out to lunch.
We tried to ground it more.
And just said, we can't express this story.
Right.
And so
I do remember that.
What was it? And pitched a simpler variation of the same
Right.
story. It expressed everything that I hoped we could express, but
In retrospect, I don't think it was like we had it figured out and you didn't or anything like that. I think it was that
I do.
on a daily basis we were building the rooms. And so we knew how long it took us to prop out one room and to set up the AI for it. And we knew, like, you know, how big the room could be before the renderer choked, or how many guys we were successfully getting on screen. So I think part of it was that, just if you use the tools, like I don't use the tools anymore. And so I routinely suggest things that the guys around me are like, whoa, we can't do that because you'd have too many meta connections there or whatever. And I'm just like, oh, okay, let's not do that then.